The drunken mayor believed his authority made him untouchable. Years of power had rotted his conscience, convincing him that rules were meant for others. That belief reached its darkest form the morning he raised a heavy beer bottle and smashed it against the head of the only being who had ever protected his daughter. The loyal German shepherd collapsed onto the grass, blood staining its fur, while the mayor laughed, certain no one would dare oppose him. He never noticed the quiet observer standing beyond the fence. He never expected the hardened Navy SEAL who had seen far worse than suburban cruelty. And he never imagined justice would come from the shadows. Oak Haven sat just outside Charleston, a wealthy suburb dressed in perfection. The early sun rose over trimmed lawns and wrought iron gates, yet the air already felt thick with South Carolina humidity. Expensive homes hid ugly secrets behind oak doors, and nowhere was that truer than the large estate at the end of the cul-de-sac. Emily was awake before dawn, moving carefully as if one wrong step might shatter the ground beneath her. At 22, she carried herself with quiet fear, her shoulders permanently tense. Despite the rising heat, she wore a long-sleeved cotton shirt, buttoned high to hide the bruises that mapped her arms. She worked silently, dragging heavy bags of charcoal across the patio. Beside her sat Titan, a 5-year-old German shepherd whose once glossy coat had dulled with neglect. He watched her with unwavering devotion, panting softly. When he stood, he limped noticeably, an untreated injury from years earlier. Girl and dog mirrored one another, wounded, loyal, and trapped. The sliding door hissed open. Richard, her father, stepped outside holding a mug of coffee. In public he was the charming mayor. At home he was something else entirely. His bloated face twisted with irritation as he surveyed the yard. "You're too slow," he snapped. "The guests will be here soon. I want everything perfect." Emily flinched. "Yes, father," she whispered, never meeting his eyes. Titan nudged her leg gently, sensing her distress. Richard scoffed. "Get that mutt out of the way," he sneered. "If he causes trouble today, I'll put him down myself." Titan didn't move. He pressed closer to Emily, silently guarding her. Just beyond the fence, Mason stood on the porch of a small guest cottage. He had rented it seeking peace, distance from war and bloodshed. Instead he found another battlefield. Watching through the slats, the Navy SEAL immediately recognized the signs. The fear, the bruises, the abuse. His instincts screamed to intervene, but he forced himself to remain still. For now. By midday, the backyard had transformed into a furnace. Heat shimmered off the stone patio as guests arrived. Men who ruled the town through money and intimidation. Richard sat proudly at the head of the table, beer in hand, his laughter loud and cruel. Around him were his allies, powerful, drunk, and morally bankrupt. Emily moved like a shadow, refilling drinks and carrying trays. Sweat soaked her sleeves, but she didn't dare roll them up. Titan rested beneath a willow tree, eyes locked on her every move, alert to every raised voice. On the other side of the fence, Mason sat still, sunglasses hiding his gaze. He hadn't turned a page of his book in nearly an hour. His body was tense, his breathing controlled. He told himself it was just drunken talk. But each insult chipped away at his restraint. The mood shifted when alcohol loosened restraint further. One of Richard's guests, Stan, reached out and grabbed Emily's wrist. "Sit with us," he slurred. "Have a drink." Emily froze, panic flooding her chest. She tried to pull free, but Stan tightened his grip. Richard waved dismissively. "Don't be rude," he said. Emily yanked her arm away in desperation, accidentally knocking over Stan's glass. Whiskey spilled across his expensive clothes. Silence slammed down on the yard. Richard exploded. "You embarrassed me," he roared, grabbing Emily by the hair and dragging her upright. The slap echoed like a gunshot. Emily fell to the ground, gasping. Richard lifted his foot to strike again. Titan launched himself forward. Despite his injury, the dog placed himself between Emily and her father, teeth bared in warning. Richard responded with rage, kicking Titan hard in the ribs. The dog yelped but did not retreat. Emily screamed, shielding him. That was the moment everything changed. Richard grabbed an empty beer bottle and swung with all his strength. The glass shattered against Titan's skull. Blood sprayed across the grass as the dog collapsed, unmoving. Emily's scream turned into silent horror. Richard raised the broken bottle again. "You're next." The fence exploded behind him. Mason vaulted over in one smooth motion, landing with lethal precision. He closed the distance in seconds. Grabbing Richard's wrist, he twisted sharply, bones snapping. The bottle fell. One clean punch followed. Richard dropped unconscious to the stone patio. The yard fell deathly silent. Mason turned slowly toward the guests. His voice was calm but absolute. "Sit down." They obeyed. Then Mason knelt beside Emily and Titan, the war he tried to leave behind now standing in a quiet South Carolina backyard. Mason wasted no time. He carried Titan to his old pickup truck as Emily pressed a blood-soaked shirt to the wound. The engine roared as they tore away from the estate, leaving corruption behind in a cloud of dust. Emily sobbed, shaking. "He'll kill us," she whispered. Mason's voice was steady. "You're a medic right now. Keep pressure on the wound. Don't stop." Sirens appeared behind them. Mason slowed and pulled over, hands visible. A young officer approached, tension clear in his stance, until he saw the truth inside the cab, a battered girl and a dying dog. Against orders, the officer made a choice. He let them go. They reached a small veterinary clinic hidden among oak trees. Dr. Sarah Reynolds, a former combat medic, took control instantly. Titan was rushed into surgery as Emily collapsed into a waiting room chair, finally surrounded by kindness instead of fear. Inside the operating room, Mason assisted, his hands steady. When Titan flatlined, Mason refused to accept it. He performed compressions, breathing life back into the dog with sheer will. Against all odds, Titan's heart restarted. Mason broke down in relief. Days later, they hid in a remote forest cabin, off the grid, away from reach. Titan healed slowly. Emily learned what safety felt like for the first time in her life. But the world hadn't forgotten them. Richard lied to the media, labeling Mason a kidnapper. A reward was offered. Hunters were coming. Emily considered leaving to save Mason. He stopped her. "We're a team," he said. "I don't abandon teammates." They contacted an investigative journalist. Emily recorded the truth, her bruises, her story, Titan's wounds. The upload completed seconds before headlights flooded the cabin. Richard had found them. The forest went silent as vehicles surrounded the cabin. Mason extinguished the fire and moved into darkness. Armed men approached, confident in numbers. They were wrong. One by one, Mason neutralized them silently: precision, discipline, control. When Richard burst inside with a gun, screaming accusations, he found himself alone. Cornered. Emily watched as Mason disarmed him without violence, proving once and for all who held real power. Sirens echoed in the distance, not Richard's men but federal authorities. The video had gone public. The truth spread fast. Richard was arrested. His allies fell with him. Emily testified. The town watched its idol crumble. Months later, Emily stood free. Titan walked beside her, scars healed. Mason returned to service, his oath fulfilled. Some guardians wear uniforms. Some have 4 legs. And some appear when darkness believes it has won.